Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good morning so far. Thank you for joining us. Super excited to talk about this topic today. My name is Erin Kopec, and I am the VP of Marketing here at HireLevel. I'm sitting beside my colleague here, Lacee Breeden, who's also going to help me tag team this topic. So we're both certified staffing professionals. I've been with HireLevel for, it'll be 15 years this year. So I've been around a while and just excited as a workforce partner to talk about specifically labor shortages in manufacturing today, but our topic really extends to the industry. We're seeing a lot of the hiring challenges and costs and things like that across the board. And so today we're just going to talk about how to find quality applicants and share our expertise with you.
Hello, everyone. As she said, I'm Lacee Breeden, and I am the Recruitment Marketing Manager at HireLevel. I've been here for 6 years, which is crazy. Erin is right next to me, too, so if I'm looking this way a lot. But my role focuses on helping our recruiting teams find quality applicants, primarily in the light industrial space across multiple markets, from entry-level type roles to more skilled. I manage our job board, social media, all of our recruitment marketing. I work with lots of community partners in all of our markets and oversee our AI and candidate engagement platform. So that means looking at the entire candidate journey, from attracting and engaging applicants to scheduling interviews, and staying connected beyond the hire. So my goal is really to help our recruitment team build stronger pipelines, reach the right talent, which we're all trying to do, and create a candidate experience that keeps people engaged. So excited to talk about this topic, as I'm very passionate about it. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
And before we get started, if you guys have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to tap that in the chat box. We should be able to see that and facilitate and get those answered for you.
All right, let's get rolling. Just some things that we're going to go over. Just a quick labor market reality check, what's going on right now. Key hiring challenges, strategic recruiting tactics, so practical ways to keep and find talent, tech and AI tools, what everyone's talking about right now, and then some takeaways and next steps. And also, we have some great resources for you as well. So I think I'm jumping in again. All right, so what is happening right now, which is also called the workforce squeeze? So the manufacturing workforce is changing on multiple fronts. Retirements are outpacing new entrants, creating a significant experience gap as long-time skilled workers are leading the workforce. So this is a challenge for everyone. At the same time, the jobs themselves are changing. So manufacturing employees are increasingly expected to work with CNC equipment, robotics, automation, warehouse management systems, scanners, other technology. So they're wanting more from their employees, and we're seeing that across the board. But they're looking for people who can learn and adapt to technology, which I would probably say even 10, 15 years ago, it's changed dramatically with AI and everything else that's happening. And then there's a pipeline challenge. So fewer young workers are entering traditional manufacturing and skilled trades, while many experienced workers are nearing retirement. So this creates a smaller pool of candidate and makes competition for experienced talent much stronger.
So the 4.1%, as you see on the screen, that was pulled from the National Association of Manufacturers. I'm just curious how that sits with those of you on the call today. Feel free to put in the chat if you have a certain percentage of unfilled roles that you're dealing with right now. But that's really the average per the stat. And then I think just really looking at vacancies. I think a lot of manufacturers, according to that as well, is above 5%. Obviously, a healthier rate is around the 1 and 2%. So a lot of plants are running 2 to 3 times above what's typically sustainable for those unfilled roles. So we know that hurts production, distribution, and customer contracts. So that's really where we come in and provide a flexible workforce with those roles that are going unfilled. So something else that we added into this presentation is just really talking about the applicant pool. And one thing that we thought was important to talk about today is just the perception of the problem. Sometimes it's not about the work itself, it's the visibility. So I think we all have to take a look back with a Gen Z heavy population. They're entering the workforce, they're applying to jobs, they're looking for new roles, and that's the 18 to 24 age range. And so we need to give them a taste, whether it's right at a high school, in high school, those early years in high school, of like what does those modern plant floors look like? What type of new technology are you using? Like, how do you really brag about your company's technology stack? A lot of maybe younger generation candidates think that it's a 1990s assembly floor, and they have this visual of what this workforce looks like in the plants. And we have to make sure they know that it's not, we know some companies do have older equipment, but let's talk about how you keep that equipment up to date. How are you training people on that technology, and whether that's showing a short video clip or really highlighting those positives in your facility so they know that it's not just an old plant floor that they're looking at. It's newer, up to date, modernized, to be able to help them with a career path.
Sure. All right, just to show some numbers and some things that are happening. So nearly 500,000 manufacturing jobs are open right now. So that's set to grow pretty rapidly over the next few years. So roughly a quarter of the manufacturing workforce is retiring by 2030. So you definitely need to have a plan for those that are retiring, to training some of those younger team members into those specific roles. So it's a gap of 1.5 to 2 million workers. So logistics has its own version of this. So again, like the truck driver shortage is huge as well. But it's not just finding people, it's keeping them is just as hard as probably most of this. It is always a challenge. So you need to have a plan for this, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing in a little bit on how we can help retain some of those employees.
Another thing, of course, we can't go without saying is, as some of this stuff has changed over the last few years, we have seen huge wage spikes. I don't know about you all. I was around this industry in 2020, and I just can't believe the constant collaboration with our customers that we had to make, nickel and diming and making sure that they were competitive when the pay rates were really climbing. We've seen that up until this year, steady increases to remain competitive, and obviously be an employer of choice. And so I know it's competitive out there. I know you've probably all seen it, the squeeze within labor markets and the wages. So here it says attrition and overtime. I think too, just looking at the pay wages as they go up, if you have unfilled positions, what does that attribute to when it comes to paying overtime? A lot of time it's really outside the budget. So that's why retention is important in recruitment, and we're going to talk more about that as the presentation goes.
All right. Oh, we already talked about that. All right. So as we mentioned, here's just some of the markets that we work in, and we just wanted to touch briefly on this because every market is different when it comes to the workforce and what's out there. So starting off, we have lots of clients in the Missouri region. So in that St. Louis, St. Charles area, it's a large and diverse manufacturing base with manufacturing employment around 118,000 in that metro area. Competition, so is lots of warehouse, logistics, distribution. It's growing pretty rapidly in the St. Louis area. A key challenge in that Missouri market, volume, speed. Employers need people quickly, but they still need that reliable, qualified candidate. So another barrier that we're seeing too is St. Louis and St. Charles. There's the Mississippi River right there. So there is some transportation challenges as well going across there because it's not bus line friendly. So that is another challenge we're seeing. So Erin and I sit in the Southern Illinois region, and it's a very different labor market. So smaller communities, more limited candidate pool, and a strong concentration of manufacturing, automotive, industrial, and skilled trade positions. So employers definitely need to be creative when they're trying to find these candidates. So Definitely be involved in community, get out there. There's different work centers that you need to be a part of. And also within these smaller locations, people are willing to travel a little bit further because it doesn't take as long like it would in a big city. So as mentioned, finding enough people with the right skills and getting candidates to consider manufacturing as a long-term career. Another market that we're in is that Nashville, Murfreesboro area. It's highly competitive. If you haven't been there in a while, it's crazy. It's growing. And there's 89,000 manufacturing jobs there as of June 2026. So, and they're continuing to add. So the hiring challenge there is candidates have options. They see a higher pay rate next door, they might be jumping there. So that is something to consider. But you guys definitely need to sell the opportunity, not simply post the job. That does not work anymore. You have to be creative with what you're doing.
More to come on that. So we're going to dig into the key hiring challenges right now. I know we talked a little bit about workforce, really breaking down the top 4 to 5 areas. One of those is the aging workforce, and we'll get to the ways to combat this after these next couple slides. But we know that veteran employees are retiring, shrinking talent pools, parts of the country. For every 5 skilled trades people retiring, 2 are entering the field. So obviously the math's not mathing there. The younger workforce, they do sometimes avoid those factory-driven roles altogether. I do think that's getting a little better with some different high school programs and college curriculums that I'm familiar with. But I think a lot of people like remote work, and so sometimes that physical labor, it's hard to just imagine that for the Gen Z workforce. Of course, no secret, turnover and instability. Large trucking companies, for example, often replace their entire driver workforce every year. Phew, that's a lot. In warehouses, turnover is around 36%. So that's 1 in 3 workers that leave annually. So that churn creates more work on training. It creates hardships on your current employees that show up every day. And it also drains HR's time. So overall straining operations, training, replacements, absorbing that productivity, and then of course covering overtime can be a lot. And then one of the big things we have seen too is just speed versus process. Hiring can take a while. I would definitely encourage you to look at your process, starting with the application, the time to contact a candidate. We know that there are multiple steps. There are background checks, there are safety tests, there are multi-step approvals, and this person needs to interview that person. All it's necessary, and I know that does take time, but I will just look at that process and reevaluate, like how long does it take for you to contact an applicant once they've applied with you. A lot of candidates, they accept offers within 10 days. So if you're not if you're not giving them an offer, if you're not interviewing them quick enough, they've moved on, or they maybe even forgot they applied with you. We see that a lot. On average, it takes manufacturing roles 18 to 35 days to fill, and we're seeing upwards to 45 days or longer for those skilled trades. And so candidates are expecting immediate gratification. So I would recommend on reevaluate your processes, making sure you're communicating effectively, and make sure you're not really stopping the process.
So you're not losing them
to stop the hire. Obviously, employer branding is very important. When we recruit for our customers, and even for ourselves, candidates are looking at your Google reviews. They're reading what's online about your company, whether it be benefits or work culture. So take a look at that. Company schedules. So I think be transparent about the real value and the selling points of your position. Make sure you have that value proposition on the table. Talk about it during interviews. Talk about it when you are advertising positions. Candidates are even looking at your website. So look at that and make sure that people have that positive experience and have a good employer brand when you're putting your positions out there.
All right. Oh, I went through that, didn't you? All right, now we're going to get into some of the 5 practical strategies. Starting off with broaden your talent pipeline. So if the traditional pool is shallow, if you're in this region especially, It's not, you don't have a huge, it's just not a lot of people here. You need to widen it. So stop fishing the same pond as every other plant in the country. So some things that you can do is partnering with trade schools and communities, building apprenticeships in welding, machining, and maintenance. I know there's some great partners around here. If you want to mention that, Erin.
So on MantraCon in Southern Illinois, and I know they have different branches in other metro areas, city areas, American Job Center, something similar, but they've recently started an apprenticeship program here in Southern Illinois, and I know a lot of local businesses who have taken advantage of that. You've got to grow your people, and I think starting out with training programs, which is really what an apprenticeship program is, there's grants and different things that can be funded. So definitely recommend checking out the MantraCons, your American Job Centers. What are those state and federal resources that can help your businesses with those types of skill up programs?
Absolutely. Growing your own programs as well. So sponsor vocational classes, fund CDL training, maybe for like in exchange for like a service commitment, tapping those untapped pools. So second chance hiring, reentry programs, veterans, retirees or semi-retirees willing to take part-time. I feel like that, just with the economy and everything is so expensive right now, I do feel like a lot of retirees are coming back to the workforce. So how can you give them that part-time opportunity? I think that is missed very often right now. Being visibly local, be visible locally. So job fairs, there's tons out there. Workforce development boards, open houses, referral bonuses. We see that a lot, really engage new candidates. But one story that definitely really stood out to me when I think about the impact of second chance hiring comes actually one of our clients in Southern Illinois, which is ISN. We've been with them for, I know it's been a long time, 10, 15 years. We've been helping them with staff, but we had a gentleman who came to us who had recently been released from federal prison. He was very nervous and scared that he wasn't going to be able to find employment. So he came to us and we were like, okay, ISN, second chance friendly. He was placed as a production worker. He didn't just show up. He worked hard. He proved himself and took the opportunity seriously. ISN, they recognized that effort, and then he was hired on directly. Over time, he continued to grow with the company, worked his way up. He ended up being like a head honcho, like a manager out there. And they didn't just give him a job. They also, had the opportunity to build his career. He went back to school. He received a bachelor's degree, and he was able to support his family. And he was very thankful for that. So definitely think about second chance hiring. There's lots of great community partners out there that can connect you with these individuals. So don't miss out on some of these untapped pools. All right. Anything else to add there? Nope. And just wanted to note that we have a very large database built over 31 years. We've been in business 31 years. It's around 500,000 that we have in our system. So we know the good, the bad. So we have access to that. All right. So as Erin mentioned a little bit, cutting that time to hire. So to start off, you want to simplify the application. No one wants I know I get frustrated really easy if something gets too hard. So candidates can apply by phone, email, text, get a confirmation right away. You need to make that application easy. We've used quick applies on our website in the past, but make sure you do it yourself, because we've had that before too, where have you tried to just do your own application? Is it easy for you, or have someone else, a friend or family member, to see if you're able to get through that? A huge thing. Cutting interview rounds is another thing. So if you normally run 3 rounds, you can cut that down to 1 or 2 would be another thing. Let's see. Put a human behind the application. So with us, recruiters will follow up by phone to schedule interviews and make a real connection first. So I think that is very important. I know automation is a new thing that everyone's using, but you still need to have that human behind it. Automate the follow through. So you can use AI for emails and text outreach, keeping candidates moving through the process. We have, I believe, 4 reminders for interviews and scheduling support at every step. Keep candidates engaged. So additional interviews, updates, reminders. You need to continue to communicate with them, and they expect that nowadays. I know some people are like, well, that's too much communication. I'm like, actually, it's not. They expect that. Move with urgency. So when a candidate is a fit and the process aligns, apply to hire can happen in as little as 5 to 7 days. So you need to be quick. So this is just a little bit of an example of it was a machine operator that we hired for, that the time it took them was 42 days, and we were able to drop that down to 18 days, and then offer acceptance 61 to 84%, and decrease that cost per hire by 29%. All right. The next one we have is candidates' experience is a huge differentiator. A strong candidate experience can be the difference between a candidate showing up or choosing another employer. Just one thing to note too, candidates, especially the ones that are in the skilled, your welders, your CNC machine operators, they're getting texts probably all day about job opportunities. So how are you standing out versus these other employers? As mentioned again, fast communication. You have to be quick. They are expecting you to respond. The quicker you can respond, the better. So don't leave them wondering what happens next. Again, human connection, simple process, consistent follow-up. Transparency is another thing. So you need to have clear expectations around your pay, your schedule, job duties, hiring timeline. These are all really great things that you can put in your job description. That's a whole nother topic I could talk all day about, but making sure that everything is laid out in that description and they know exactly what they're going to be doing in that position, their schedule. Of course, you always want to include in benefits. That can be a differentiator as well. And always have respect for their time. So every interaction shapes your employment brand. Another thing to note, most of us work from 8 to 5. But a lot of these candidates are currently working. So does that mean you need to interview after their work time or at lunch? So those are things that could be a little bit of, maybe some other employer won't budge on that. So you need to maybe shift your interview times. Anything else? We good? Okay. Here you go.
All right, so about retention. So we wouldn't have all these problems if we could actually keep people. But we know that's not a perfect world. One of the big things that we see with our applicants and employers is someone will start the job and it won't be quite what they thought it was going to be. So I think being honest about the job, is your facility hot? Is it temperature controlled? Is it cold? Be honest, be transparent, share the good, the bad, shift schedules. If there's overtime opportunity or the possibility of someone having to work a weekend, make sure you share that. We want to make sure that the schedule, nothing's a surprise, physical requirements, that will really help mitigate the turnover right from the get-go. So I think some of our customers do like tours or they do like working interviews. How can you get your candidates in the door, sharing that expectation right from the get-go? I think too, measuring attendance history and reliability. I think we all want skilled employees. We all want people to hire that are already trained. But I think having those team members with good attendance, they're reliable, we know they're going to show up, they are interested in skill advancement. I think just look at that history. Is there a resume gap? Just get the whole details outside of just that skill, who you're hiring in the first place. A lot of times too, we talk about automation and reminders. We try to do what we can to get the first day jitters out of the way. So we provide schedules. What door do people need to enter in? What do you need to wear your first day? Parking details. sometimes those little nuggets of information can go a long way. Who the supervisor is going to be. I think sometimes you've all been around a while, and so some of those small details go unnoticed. But just remember, they're new to your facility, they're new to your company, and the more details you can share with them, the better. I think too, how can you get your frontline leadership involved in the hiring process, or even making sure the first day introductions are maybe warm and fuzzy? How do you get the supervisors and the frontline team members to welcome people? I think feeling welcome at a workforce, you can't beat it. And so I think strengthening that involvement with leadership can go a long way. And then we can talk about the visible advancement opportunities, talking about a career path, certifications. Some people are happy where they're at, and that's fine. But I would definitely have something prepared or something to share that provides them a visible path for those that want to be engaged for advancement.
All right, old buzzword, what everyone's talking about now. Putting AI on the repetitive work. So as we've mentioned multiple times, let automation handle the speed and volume so recruiters can really focus on people. As I've mentioned, we have the goal, you want to source and screen faster. So we have 31 years of talent data and AI matching. We are able to search hundreds of thousands of skilled candidates in seconds. Utilizing location, what skills that they have on their resume. AI services relevant manufacturing experience. There's also certifications that we're able to search and look for that. Qualified candidates are ranked automatically as well for recruiter review. We're able to re-engage candidates already in our database before new ads go up on Indeed, Zip. A lot of the candidates might already be in our system, and we just need to be communicating with them, and that's something that we really focus on and we've had success with in the last few years. The other thing is instant engagement and self-scheduling. We've talked about this. So reducing that delays back and forth. How many times do you go back and forth trying to schedule something with someone when you're like, man, we probably should have just sent a link and they can just schedule it themselves. It has been a huge help for us. We automate. We probably have about 200-ish interviews that we do every week, and automated. The candidates are scheduling that themselves with the reminders and all of that and expectations for that phone interview, phone screen. And then again, it just accelerates that response time. So huge thing. Other things, retaining talent beyond day one. So pre-start communication has, as Erin has mentioned, really has helped reduce the no-shows. 1 week and 1 month employee surveys. We do that for on assignment. So if we try to be proactive, if there's something going on, good or bad, we're going to know that and try to address it before that candidate leaves. Client specific certification engagement surveys. This is something that our clients really love. We can set specific survey questions regarding the role, regarding the client. And it's been very valuable for us. As Erin mentioned, we have first day check-ins, ongoing things just to make sure everything's going well. Something new that we started, we have monthly manufacturing focused safety reminders. This is for the light industrial space. We sometimes will have fun little, I think it was for National Safety Month, we sent out an email, and it actually was like a little safety quiz. And if you completed it, chance to win $100. And I think we had 70 or 80 people complete it. So, because obviously that's very important in this space. And then again, we have various campaigns that keep skills and work status current, constantly trying to update and see if candidates are looking for work.
So curious who on the call is using some form of AI, either recruitment or HR or on their floor. Drop it in the chat. We'll look at those later on today, but just curious on who's actually implementing some of this into their day-to-day. So we can't go without, we talked about AI, so we can't go without saying there is some responsibility that comes with it. Obviously, there's some legal things to think about and some compliance. So I'm going to talk briefly about that so you can walk away with some next steps. AI does bring legal exposure. We do closely watch this. I think I would recommend a policy, get together with your leadership team and decide as a company how you're going to use AI from the recruitment standpoint, even other items. A lot of things need to be under watch so you're not at risk for compliance challenges. So we put together here some green, yellow, and red, different things that's safe to automate and you don't really have to worry about the legal implications of AI. So drafting job descriptions, of course. Some people use ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever it may be. Obviously, that's safe. Use it for your job descriptions. Use it to tighten up your interview questions for a specific role. And then, of course, if you have any type of email templates or text templates, interview reminders, or just workplace policy in general, you can use AI. Green light all day. I think where we get shaky is making sure that there are certain aspects of your recruitment policy that's being reviewed by a human. So AI is not automatically rejecting candidates. So that comes in on the resume screening and ranking candidates. If you guys have a process like that, if you score candidates based on their experience. And then we've looked into using a chatbot to help pre-screen candidates at the very top of the funnel, taking up the general questions. And then, of course, automated outreach and sequences. Like, that's all good. You stay in that lane for the AI use. And then we move to red. You don't want to automatically reject a candidate with a chatbot or anything like that. Like, you want to have it under human review. Anything touching different protected characteristics can get you into some hot water. So definitely look at it, pay attention. Of course, another one to look at is pay rates and promotions. All that stuff needs to be either second checked by human every time.
All right, I'm going to jump a little bit into open positions could cost much more than recruiting support. So every day a manufacturing role sits unfilled, hits production, safety, quality, and profitability. So lost productivity from vacant machine operator positions, maintenance, forklift production, what is that going to cost you? Number two, increased overtime costs that can contribute to employee fatigue and burnout. I feel like we're seeing that a lot with welders just trying to find, and then they'll work overtime. So a lot of these skilled positions, we're seeing the overtime. Three, strain on supervisors and team leads who recruit, interview, and onboard instead of running operations. Longer time to fill can delay production schedule and customer commitments, which is very stressful on everyone if that's happening. Higher turnover risk when hiring decisions are rushed or candidate expectations are unclear. So if we're doing those things quickly, you forget. And that's why automation has really helped in that category. And then training and ramp up costs can take months before a new employee reaches full productivity. So those are all things to consider when you have those open positions.
So a few different ways the HireLevel can really support your operations. We really have 3 different verticals. The majority of what we see is temp to hire, if you're familiar with working with staffing companies. But I think it's really nice to have that model. If you have a partnership with a staffing company or you're looking to partner with someone, it gives you a chance to see how they fit within your culture of your company or their work ethic. What is their attendance like? Also provides you the opportunity to have seasonal adjustments. We have some customers that want someone on a temporary basis. It may not be the full 90 days or whatnot, but we're able to help you provide a more flexible workforce for coverages if you have different seasonalities. Provide ramp up. That's all stuff that we're used to working with, and I think that is the value. That's more for the hourly workforce. And then we do the direct hire side. That's a lot of supervisors, the managerial and C-suite type roles, supervisors, maintenance techs. We work with a lot of controllers and finance type roles, accounting, management type positions. And I think the value of that is just tapping into a pipeline. Sometimes with those managerial type roles, it takes time to source and vet and interview for those specific roles that maybe you're not used to interviewing for. So I think that's value is in having a partnership for those types of roles, especially if they come upon suddenly. And then the roles we place in manufacturing, obviously this is just a snapshot. An example, we work with machine operators, assemblers, forklift, the wide range of roles that you would expect to see in those hourly skilled trades, light industrial type environments, and then with the leadership and technical roles, what we've been seeing over the last year or so would be the maintenance technicians. If I had $1 for every business that needs a maintenance tech, might not be sitting here right now, but that is definitely a sought after role. Production supervisors, quality managers, those types of roles that could be on the plant floor. But then we've also seen controller type roles, as I mentioned, and more of those white collar roles in the manufacturing setting.
All right, the fun stuff. So one thing that we wanted to share, these are just some promotions and a resource that we have. So you can actually, the first bucket here, the open roles cost calculator is really cool. So you can pull this up, put in some of your numbers, and you can see actually what's the true cost of open roles for your organization. So this is a really awesome tool to use. And then also attendee offers. So we're offering $500 off a direct hire service. So you can just scan there or you can email us. Either way, we want to give you that opportunity today for listening to us and being on this call. And then also a hiring strategy session. This is something that I love to do. I like to just brainstorm, understand your business and how just give some ideas that could be helpful for you. So feel free to scan that one and book a session with me.
And then following the webinar, we will send out our information, the recording, share the slides with you, just to make sure you're in tune and connected with us. And feel free to reach out. We really appreciate you joining us today. We could, like Lacey said, we could talk all day on this topic. We only hit the tip of the iceberg with what we have to share. And so happy to continue to brainstorm if you have a specific question. We'd be happy to answer it for you. I know a lot of you on the call or probably listening and multitasking. Definitely appreciate your attendance today and the time, and hopefully you had some great takeaways. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. Looks like a couple of you back to the AI question, using some automated responses for candidates to take action. So that's great. And then LLM and local SLM. So nice, Daniel. Sounds like you're ahead of the game or trying to get there with some AI usage. So that's great. We've found a lot of value in it, both on a recruitment standpoint and also just with efficiencies within our team. So definitely worth checking out. All right. I don't see any other questions. Again, you have our contact information. We'll be sending out a follow-up and hope to be in touch.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Have a great day.